Hi, so today we're going to talk about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is something I learned about in freshman year bio. Never really understood it until now after I researched it a bunch. So I am going to explain the process to you. So photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their food. This plant food is called glucose. And then photosynthesis could be split into two words: photo, which means light in this case, and synthesis, which means putting together. So overall, photosynthesis is basically light being put together. And to make this food for the plant, you need three different things. You need carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. To get the carbon dioxide, it passes through small pores in the plant called the stomata. And then the water is absorbed by the roots. And then sunlight is absorbed by a green chemical in the plant. All the photosynthesis takes place in in the leaves of plants. So there are two different processes when it comes to photosynthesis. The first one we're going to talk about is the light-dependent reaction. The light-dependent reaction requires light, like it says in its name, and basically it just has light energy, which is converted to chemical energy. And then the chemical energy is absorbed by chlorophyll, and then it absorbs energy from the sun. And then this energy is then transferred to the photosystems responsible for photosynthesis. And photosystems are basically just the things responsible for energy conversions. And then water is used to produce the oxygen and the electrons and hydrogen ions. And then the electron and hydrogen ions then are used to make ATP and NADPH. And ATP is where energy is stored in the molecule, and NADPH is an electron carrier. And these ATP and NADPH are both used in the next stage of photosynthesis. So the next stage is the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle does not need light, but it does need the ATP and NADPH in order to work. So you can't just have one cycle and not the other. You need both of them for the whole photosynthesis to work. So the Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma of chloroplasts, and it has carbon dioxide that combines with a bibulous biphosphate, and this causes like an unstable carbon intermediate. So then it has to break down into two different 3-carbon molecules. And these molecules then receive the energy from the ATP and the NADPH, which were already made in the previous cycle. And this causes a bunch of more molecules to be produced. And then this cycle just kind of keeps going. And then once the cycle is over, it must make more of the ribulous biphosphate, so it can start the process over. So these two processes kind of just work with each other in order to make the energy needed. And then so obviously we talked about needing 3 different things in order to make photosynthesis, which are sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. And then we talked about that photosynthesis is the process to make food for plants, and we talked that the food was glucose. And then we talked about 2 cycles: the light-dependent reaction, which makes ATP and NADPH, and we talked about the Calvin cycle, which, unlike the light-dependent reaction, which needs light, it does not need light, but it needs the ATP and NADPH in order to work. And overall, this energy is just being used over and over again and transformed into different things in order for this food to be made. There's no way that this couldn't happen without the sun and without water and without the carbon dioxide. Well, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys learned something. Bye.